Well, good evening, members. Before I open the meeting, can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device to mute it to avoid feedback, please? And can I ask any remote participants to keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak? And ideally, do not use a camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the IT connection. Please note that the meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swelborough Council or Kent County Council laptop to participate virtually. And if you're using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not possible to identify you and you will not be recorded as being in remote attendance. Could I ask members to speak loudly and clearly into their microphones and to switch their microphones off after speaking, otherwise remote participants may be unable to hear their next speaker. Welcome everyone to this extraordinary Policy and Resources Committee meeting, including visiting members, attending remotely and members of the public. I'd now like to welcome all of our staff that are in attendance, the Chief Executive, Larissa Reid, Director of Resources, Lisa Fillery, Head of Revenues and Benefits remotely, Zoe Kent, Head of Place, Joanne Johnson, Planning Policy Manager, Natalie Earle, and Democratic Services Officer, Billy Attaway. There's no fire drill planned this evening, and if the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the exits, which I guess you're all too well acquainted with to listen to me piping on about that bit. And of course, I will remind you not to use the lifts. Are there any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Mike Baldock, who's substituted by Councillor Monique Bonney, Councillor Elliot Jays, who's substituted by Councillor Derek Carnell, Councillor Julian Speed, Councillor Rich Lehman, who's substituted by Councillor Thompson, and Councillor Wooster, who is substituted by Councillor Braun.
Thank you. Councillor... Oh. Right. Okay, thank you. So, members, are there any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Bonney, please.
For the sake of clarity, I'll declare that I'm a member of the Five Parishes group, but I don't think that precludes me from any of the discussions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to item 4, which is the Council Tax Reduction Scheme. And I'll now ask our officer, Zoe Kent, to introduce it for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report is requesting permission to undertake a consultation with both the public and the major precepting authorities in respect of proposed changes to the Council's Council Tax Reduction Scheme with effect from 1st of April 2026. The cost of the scheme for 2024-25 can be found in 2.5. For 2025-26, the current expenditure is 11.5 million. With this cost falling mainly to Kent County Council. Since 2013, there has been an agreement with the major preceptors that they would provide a grant towards the cost of the administration of the scheme, as more than 85% of the scheme was funded by the preceptors. A grant of £170,000 was paid to the council for a number of years to ensure that the districts produce broadly consistent schemes across the county. The grant was withdrawn with very little notice by the preceptors from 1st of April 2025. This means that the cost of administrating the council tax reduction schemes now falls wholly on the district authorities. A consultation was last carried out in 2023. As the funding for the major preceptors has been removed, it is appropriate to seek views on whether the scheme should be changed to reduce the cost of administrating it. The costs of changing the scheme can be found in 2.15, tables 3 and 4. It is proposed to consult on increasing the maximum award to either 90% or 100%, or to give both options. It is also proposed to consult on increasing bands 2 to 4 by 10%. I welcome any questions.
Thank you. And just before we go there, Zoe, can I confirm, members, that you've received the to follow appendices? Okay, thank you. And you're all happy with... Is that right? Thank you. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thanks, Chair. I did read this, and spit on the ground about the withdrawing of the grant. But even though I read it all, I thought, yeah, and so can we take the cost of the administration out of? This was the bit that I couldn't get to. It's raised. Everyone used to chip in to pay for the admin. Now the major preceptor doesn't chip in for the admin. It's all falling on us. So is there some way that we can get that administration cost back from somewhere, like the fund? Because it wasn't clear in what I read.
Unfortunately not. The rules around the council tax collection scheme, of which the council tax reduction scheme is a cost to the pot as a whole, there is an amount that we are able to charge as the billing authority for the work that we do on that, which was why the preceptors chipped in for us to help with the administration of a more complicated schemes. But unfortunately, as Zoe has said, that's now been withdrawn, and so we are trying to look at ways to mitigate our costs.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a good report and we should absolutely go out to consultation. I mean, I can't imagine many of our residents in receipt of it will be saying, I'd like less council tax reduction, please, nor can I imagine many of our fellow preceptors will be saying, I'd like more council tax reduction, but we should give them all the opportunity to say those things, whether we're surprised or not. My comment really was just for clarity that Appendix 2, the 1992 document, is not a Swale document, and that we're not able to change it because it entirely inappropriately for 2025 refers consistently to all people as he, which is really kind of chimes wrong in the modern era. So if it is ours, please can we change it? But my reading of it is it's a government statute and we're left with it, but we should perhaps look at that if we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Zoe, did you want to comment on that?
Apologies, I'll check what's been uploaded as Appendix 2 and I'll ensure for when we come back again, if this is approved, that it's the correct document. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Members, any further comments, questions? Okay, we'll take this one to the vote then. I'll take both recommendations actually, which the first one is just to note the report and approve the consultation, and the second is to approve the consultation. It should review whether support for working age claimants should increase to 90% or 100%, or give options for both. Yes, Councillor Boyd.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that recommendation 2, there's almost 2 parts to it, reading that. So should review whether to support working age claimants should increase to 90 or 100%, or give options for both 90 and 100%. So there's almost like 2 within that one recommendation. So which one? Sorry.
We're asking which one you would like us to do.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not just a straight.
No. Councillor Palmer. Sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, I would say to give the option for 90 or 100%.
Yep. Okay. We're happy with that? Okay, those in favour? That's unanimous, members. Thank you very much indeed. No, he's a visitor. Item 5, which is undertaking a community governance review.
Thank you very much, Chair. The report before you, members, is a report for recommendation to full council, and the report is that suggests to full council that we undertake a community governance review in Swale with the objective to extend the town or parish councils to the to coverage for the whole of Swale. That Policy and Resources agreed the political configuration of a steering group and recommend this to full council, and that Policy and Resources note the draft terms of reference at Appendix B. There is no legal requirement for us to have parish councils. The majority of our borough is parished. It had been raised in the corporate plan to have a corporate governance review fairly shortly after at the last election, and indeed it formed part of the Chief Executive's appraisal for last year. However, it was stopped due to the fact that we were undergoing a local government boundary review, and when you undertake a local government boundary review, the only community governance reviews you can do are ones that come by petition. We currently have one area that is on the way to being petitioned at the moment, and that's Halfway. And we also have another area of Milton where there is interest in having a parish council, although no formal work has been undertaken there. If we agree to do if we agree to have a community governance review, the stages are set out at Appendix A. There is no timescale for when you start, but once we agree, full council agrees the areas that are going to be covered through the terms of reference, we have 12 months to complete it. So the reason that we're not asking, the recommendation is not for full council to agree terms of reference yet, is because the steering group should meet to decide what areas should be covered by the community governance review. Once that's happened, then we have to go out to do a formal consultation of 6 weeks to say we're thinking of having parish or town councils in these areas. We have to make sure that the onus is on us to talk to existing parishes, to talk to any community groups, to talk to the MPs, local residents associations, any voluntary groups, anyone that might be interested in this. And then what happens is, the first one is we can give options. Do you think, for example, we should have this area as part of a wider town council, or should it be individual? And then that comes back, so that goes out for consultation, and then it comes back and full council make a decision on what they think the final recommendations should be, and that comes from the steering group, and then it comes back here, and then we go out again to say we've narrowed it down. Do you want this or not, in effect? And then it comes back. It's to do it properly, and that's what we intend to do. It is very time consuming. We would be looking at having roadshows where we go into the community. We would be looking at doing social media. We would be looking at doing things through Inside Swale, things where we can be very clear that, you know, people are understanding of it. The decision is full council's decision. However, the final decision. However, in taking that decision, full council have to be certain that it is the will of the people, that it's not. And I'll give you an example. The Whitstable one, there was one tiny part of Whitstable that I think most people said yes, they want it. The rest of Whitstable didn't. So they can't just go on the people that said yes, they have to go on everybody. And there wasn't the breadth in Whitstable, so Canterbury City Council didn't go forward with it. So it's a big piece of work. We do have a member of staff who is working with us on local government reorganisation, and this will form part of that work. So we will be asking her to work with Steph Curtis and also Joe Millard as the electoral services manager, and me, to undertake this. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Totally support this. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. Although it's not part of it, because this is looking at potentially creating new parishes. There are some, and one certainly springs to mind, and I'm not going to name names, but you know who I'm talking about, where actually a parish isn't particularly working, and going forward, actually, if there were steps that could actually be taken to get it to either work, or say actually you can only take a horse so far before you have to stop dragging it.
Sorry, Chair. Can I
Thank you for
request-
just reminding the Chief Executive
I'm a
that
council-appointed parish councillor, Tunstall Parish Council, who may be affected by this piece of work. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. The only other comment I was going to make is actually your phrase on the will of the people, and yes, it should be. And it's then imperative on certainly the ward, all of us, but particularly the ward members in the identified areas, that the will of the people is not just a very, very small number who actually may take part in a consultation. Because if you've got 30,000, I know you wouldn't, I'm making numbers up, 30,000 people in a particular area, but only 300 take part in it, and the will of the 300 is yes. That's not really the will of the people. It is a will of the vote. So there is a job to do to actually get that more of that 30,000 actually engaged and wanting to comment either way. So it actually is a proper representation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to comment that just good to see this moving forward. It's something we've been speaking about for years in some areas, and I think doing it across the whole borough now is the right approach to be doing it, and it would be good for everyone to get a chance to have their say on it. What I think is important, though, is that the right information it goes out to start with, so people do understand what it all is, because there's going to be lots of people, especially councillors, that have got different opinions on it and pushing things out, but it needs to come from the residents. I know that for the Meads, I don't think there is the support for it, but it's right for those residents to have a say. And I personally won't be pushing any view on it. It's down to them and what they want to be doing. So it's good that it's going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Wise, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just following on from one of the points made earlier, I think 2.3 does seem to be slightly at odds with recommendation 1. So I'm wondering why that's in there, because you know, whilst there was debate about the wording included in the corporate plan ultimately, and you know, it's published as it was, although again there was a bit of confusion about which version ended up being published online as well. But I think it's really imperative that this working group considers the range of options that could go to consultation for people, particularly when we're thinking about Sittingbourne. The Chief Executive, when introducing this, did reference that there's one area that's currently petitioning to look at this. That could have been an area that others who, you know, may have a view, members, I mean, may have a view that thought should have been part of something else. And obviously the local people there are requesting something that they would like, and therefore to go to people. And I've always been in support of having this option when people come forward. But I really just want us to be mindful that there will be various options and that the steering group should really consider that properly. And so whilst there could be the desire to cover the whole borough with this level, it shouldn't be just what is determined by those members. It really does need to be led and informed by those, by what people want and what the options are when they come forward. I'm also a bit unsure about the example in 2.6 about although surrounding areas which, although are villages, are seen as some as being part of Sittingbourne town, e.g. Merston. I'm not really sure that that demonstrates that point particularly well, although it does demonstrate that any discussion about Sittingbourne town will encounter all sorts of views and opinions about what should be included with that, where it's the town centre, because Merston certainly isn't considered as being part of the town centre, although there's parts of the town centre where people consider themselves parts of Merston just because of the way that it's colloquially referred to. So we have to be really careful that that is respected fully by the steering group as this proposal goes forward. Thank you.
I think 2.6 does set out Sittingbourne Town could just be Sittingbourne Town Centre, or it could be more. And for the first stage, certainly, there would need to be options discussed that are wider or smaller, and indeed going out to consultation on things that could be wider or smaller. So I think that's what 2 points. It wasn't suggesting that as an officer I think Merston should be in there. It is that there isn't a single view on it.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, I think it's a very good report and very positive, and you'd be unsurprised to hear that the Liberal Democrat group, who are all members of Faversham Town Council, are firmly in favour of parish councils and the good they can bring to their local residents. But I would also, I think, welcome the opportunity that 2.6 provides, because the world of local government and the world, physical world, in many cases looks very different than it did when these discussions were last had. You know, they're in Faversham's own case, Faversham and Orr were once an entirely separate town and village. There is now so much housing between Faversham and Orr that distinction is rapidly fading. And in the context of local government reorganisation, people might want to think differently about how those boundaries lie, but that's entirely appropriate that sit with them. So just to express a preference for the political configuration which we're being asked to, I would request the more politically balanced version. I'm personally relaxed about whether the independent member sits on it, but the politically balanced version is fine with us. And then my question was, do we have a planned sitting time for this committee, and our usual request that it sit in an accessible time for those who work full-time jobs? So
the plan is to hold the meetings in the evening. Depending on the nature of your full-time job, that may be accessible or not. The exact timing is yet to be worked out. I've spoken to the Louise Galloway, who is online, who is the officer that's leading, and we've agreed that she will be happy to facilitate evening meetings. I will be at them also, so that's when it will be. The exact time of starting, whether it starts at 6 or 7, is really, we will be led by the group as to what works for them.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thanks, Chair. I did a training course at the place down the road on consultation, and legislatively, for consultation to be meaningful, it must take place before a decision has been made to inform a decision. Now, Policy and Resources recommends to Council that they undertake community governance review with the objective to extend town or parish council coverage to all of Swale. That doesn't sound to me to be... that sounds to me like you've decided what you want to do, and here's how we get there. Oh, by the way, we've got to consult people. So I'm not happy with the way that's phrased, because that says we're going to have a town and parish council right across Swale, people. No, we will consult you. We will ask, what you think. Several members already have said the will of the people, and indeed, when we discussed this at Policy and Resources, we did amend the consultation to have that in there. It didn't actually get to the consultation document, a decision of Policy and Resources, but that's gone. But it was clearly the view of this committee at the time, and it sounds like it still is, that it's if that's what you want, then that's what we'll go with. We'll make it work, and I agree with that. Unfortunately, in the past, we have listened to what you said and then said, yeah, no, but we agree with it anyway, love, so sorry, we're going to ignore you. So I think will of the people, and I think that needs rephrasing to say if the majority of people, like the Whitstable example, do not want it, then we don't get it. And in some places where you've got one, and basically it's moribund, good word, and it's simply collecting money for the sake of collecting money, then that needs to go, if that's the will of the people up there. So I think that needs to be rephrased. I think there needs to be, the steering group needs to be quite clear in terms of information going out. I can recall. So you won't be our councillor when we've got a town council, Ange, because we won't be part of Swale. Where'd you get that from? Well, no, that's what they told us, you know, we're going to get our own little council. And the lies and misinformation that was put about at that time was quite appalling. And indeed, eventually, when the votes come in, the indications, the majority didn't want it. And this council rode roughshod over the views of those people. So, you know, if you think I'm a bit cynical, it's because I've got these examples behind me. So I think I haven't got a problem having a community governance review. And if that's what people in that area want, fine. But if that area don't, that's equally fine. But that's what we've got to be laying out right at the start, that it is down, you're the ones that are going to be paying for it out there. So it is down to you what we have, and, you know, we'll talk about boundaries and all the rest of it and who fits in with who. But I think actually saying right at the start that we're going to have town and parish councils right across the whole of Swale is actually defeating the object. And as I say, I think that should be amended before it goes to full council. There will be a whole host of areas that, I mean, quite apart from, well, who fits in with who, quite apart from the boundaries and all the rest of it, then you actually get into the detail of, well, how many and all the rest of it, and do you have wards? I know some Queenborough Town Council has like wards for their town council, and some town councils just have anyone in the area. So all that sort of detail is what I would expect that the working group would look at once, if a decision has been made to go down that way on particular areas. As I say, I start from the beginning. That should be amended because it says we're going to have one regardless.
Okay, can I ask you if you want to make a formal proposal for an amendment, Councillor Harrison?
Well, I would say that with the objective to extend town or parish council coverage to all of Swale, if that is the wish of the residents within the various areas. Oh, sorry, if that is the wish of the majority of residents within the specific areas.
Councillor Palmer.
Well, I don't think we can put the majority of residents, because if you've got 30% who vote, then the majority of residents haven't voted. So you can't make a decision based on the majority of residents. But I do agree with what Councillor Harrison says, and I think it would be simple just to say, as it says there, following a public consultation. Noting the outcome of a public consultation or something like that. But I think Councillor Harrison's right in some respect. It sounds like it's a foregone conclusion.
Okay, Councillor Hunt. Sorry, I'll bring you back in a second.
Yep, I agree with what's been said as well, and it is just that word with the objective. But I think what maybe we're trying to get at is something along the lines of community governance review in Swale for residents to have consideration to extend town and parish councils. It's just giving the residents the consideration rather than any majority that's being mentioned.
Thank you. Councillor Wise.
Yeah, that goes back to my original point as well about the recommendations not fulfilling the point made in 2.3, which is that there could be some areas where the community governance review identifies that it's no longer working effectively. That was my point about that one, which then if you look at the draft terms of reference, again, there's no reference to looking at that in those. So that needs really careful consideration. I also wondered whether there was a deliberate reason or whether it's just something that we're not considering here or whatever about community councils. I know that there had been some appetite in some areas that feel that they have their own identity within a ward, that they would like to explore that. I don't know whether that's an option or what. But yeah, there's no reference to that in the draft terms of reference either. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa.
So someone may wish to put forward a amendment that just says Policy and Resources recommends to Council that they agree to undertake a community governance review in Swale. Full stop. The community councils This report comes from my meeting with members where community councils wasn't discussed. However, this is just draft terms of reference to give a flavour. When we have the first meeting of the group, that's when all of these options, there is a whole list of options that people can look at. It doesn't have to be just town and parish councils. So we will go through that with the steering group, and the time that this comes to P&R and full council to go forward with the areas, we'll talk about all of those things. And you're right, an important part of a community governance review is to decide whether something isn't working, and not necessarily end it, but it could be changing it, change the geography. So all of that will come. But the terms of reference at B were just I didn't want to predetermine what members of the steering group might want. So it's quite a vanilla terms of reference.
Chair, I'm quite happy to second Councillor Harrison's, then we can move on to either discuss it or accept it.
Thank you. I've just got Councillor Gibson.
I'm also relaxed about Councillor Harrison's amendment, but would perhaps remind members that if we choose not to make it the objective of this council, it is the objective of this government that this layer of council exists across the entire country in this parliament. So whilst it might not be our objective in this review, somebody else is still pushing for it, so it may not be within our gift.
Thank you. So members, I've got a proposal and a seconder for that amendment. If anybody wants to speak to it, or should we take that one to the vote? Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So the second recommendation is that P&R agree the political configuration of the steering group and recommend this to full council. Yeah, at 2.9. Funny enough. Councillor Palmer.
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, could you put your microphone on? Thank.
Whether it's one from each group or a politically balanced with 2 members from each group, but I think the independent person should be on it. Whichever option from them two, I would support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boyne.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to Councillor Palmer, actually, I'm not, my preference would be a politically balanced group plus the unaligned independent member, should they wish to be part of it. I'm not going to die in a ditch over it, whether that's one or one member from each political group plus the unaligned independent member. But I say my preference would be the politically balanced one. But then what happens? Actually, and this is a general question. Actually, on if you have a politically balanced working group, does that then change? Should the political balance then change? Sorry, Larissa.
So you'll see it says a more politically balanced. It isn't politically balanced because this is a way, in the event that something changed, it's a working group. Yeah. The membership of the working group can change. Just looking for Robin's, it doesn't need to come back here, particularly if there's agreement. What we had, though, was, for this purpose, is we didn't actually know how, whether you wanted to do one or more than one. So but if it were to change and, for example, there's one more of one, something big happens or whatever, or somebody can't field somebody, so they say, actually, we don't want our seat because we're not able to attend that meeting at that time or whatever, that's up to the group to decide. But certainly this is around the parameters. It isn't politically balanced. There's no requirement for it to be, and it would be difficult to politically balance it. So this is more.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Martin, yes. Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Given the volume of work that's likely to be involved in this, more is better. So I would formally propose that we go with the more politically balanced group, including the unaligned member.
Okay, so I've had a proposal and a seconder for that, and just for clarity, members, that's bullet point 3 at 2.9, which is a more politically balanced group.
Point 4. Bullet point 3 is the same.
Oh, plus, yes, I do apologise, yeah, plus the underlined independent member, yes. Bullet point 4. Thank you. Okay, those in favour?
Chair, before, sorry. The working group doesn't necessarily have to be policy and resources members, does it?
No, this is recommendation to the council.
So the council, so it'd be however any member of council as opposed to
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, just to clarify.
Okay. So those in favour again, I think it was unanimous. It was indeed. Thank you, members.
Nobody's asked the underlying independent.
I don't think he was interested, quite frankly. Yeah, Kimmy sat there and never said a word. Okay. Agenda item 6 then. This is the...
No, point 3.
Oh, I do apologise, yes. You can when I've completed this item, yeah. Okay. Item 3 is just for noting anyway. Note the draft terms of reference, Appendix B, understanding these will not be put before full council until the areas covered by CGR have been agreed by the steering group. Thank you very much. Right, that's it, ma'am. Thank you very much. Just before I go on to agenda item 6, I've got Lisa coming back on a previous item.
From 2003. No, not really. The report that Zoe just brought, the appendix is correct, but it includes a national scheme for pensioners, which is where the archaic wording no doubt comes from.
Thank you. So I'll thank our officer to introduce agenda item 6 for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. So this report sets out the background to the recommendation made to Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group during its meeting on the 15th of July with regard to the Local Development Scheme, which is the timetable for the local plan production. The purpose of that report, which can be seen at Appendix 1, was to set out the barriers to progressing the local plan in line with the current Local Development Scheme and to present the options for overcoming them. It also set out the alternative options and the advantages, disadvantages and the risks associated with those options. It further set out the Council's previous 3 decisions in relation to the emerging local plan, which are 1, ensuring the next local plan is adopted within the transition window, 2, awaiting the Heisted inquiry decision before progressing with a Reg 18 consultation, and 3, undertaking a draft full plan Regulation 18 consultation. A key factor is that at the Heisted inquiry on the 12th of June, the inspector advised that the inquiry would need to sit for a further 2 weeks. The inquiry is now scheduled to end on the 31st of October this year. This is a significant delay compared with the previous end date of the 29th of July. The PTPWG report assessed the LDS options available in light of this change. So members discussed this report at Planning and Transportation Working Group on the 15th of July and voted unanimously to recommend to Policy and Resources Committee tonight to recommend to full council to select option 1. This is to delay the Regulation 19 stage of the local plan to July to September 2026, once the Heisted decision has been received, and whilst reducing the scope of the Reg 18 stage to include a vision, objectives, portrait of the borough and development management policies, and to schedule that accordingly. So the proposal tonight is therefore to recommend the updated local development scheme to full council as set out under option 1 in the Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Boyne.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's not a minor point, but one point of this. It relates still with Heisted. It is fortunately unfortunate, potentially, depending how you look at it, of the extension through to the 31st of October. That doesn't mean to say when we actually get the report. Dare I say it could actually sit in the inbox of the Secretary of State through October, November, December, January, February, and it could potentially have a bearing whether we'll be actually in a position to actually undertake this in July. Hope we are. I really hope we are. But we may not be in that position come July next year, depending on how it's actually received and responded to. We don't know what we don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson, please.
Yep. If I just come back on that one, I think the Planning and Transportation Policy Working Group report does cover that. Our understanding is that we've allowed 2 to 3 months for the inspector to make her report and decision, and then 2 to 3 months as well for the Secretary of State. It's obviously the first large call-in for the Secretary of State, and we understand from that we think it will be quite a speedy decision on her behalf. Obviously, the inspector's got her break, well, not just a break, the gap in the inquiry at the moment, so we do hope that 2 to 3 months for both of them will be adequate time. So we have been pragmatic, and at this moment, that's obviously all we can do.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to commend this route of action to members and thank all the officers as Chair of PTPWG. Firstly, we, as Councillor Bowen outlined, for a whole host of reasons, we are really, really, really far from the ideal environment to be doing this and the situation we all would have wanted to be in. But we are in the situation we are in. And I think particularly it's important to thank our planning team and Natalie and Joanne, because they came up with a whole range of ways to get us through the solution. And in a surprise to nobody who knows the members of this council, we managed to find a 7th route through that was not in their initial list of policies. And they worked absolutely tirelessly to get that to the stage we're at in a really very short space of time. So thank you very much to them for that. And also thank you to Billy and the Democratic Services team for turning around minutes in literal minutes, turning them around for presentation. So I think thank you to all our officers for all of that. And I hope this is the route forward that gets us out of a sticky situation, entirely not of our making, but hopefully within our powers to resolve.
Thank you. All duly noted. Councillor Wise.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And just following on from what Councillor Gibson said there, I tuned into the PTPWG meeting because I thought it would be helpful ahead of this to see what members said. I thought it was a really helpful discussion that took place that, as you say, Councillor Gibson rightly points out that this is still going to be a challenging position. We are in a challenging position on this. But having followed that discussion and read the report, this does seem to be the sensible course of action that we can take, recognising that, going back to Councillor Bowen's point, it doesn't mean there's no risks or challenges ahead of us, but this is what we can come up with at this stage for members, and I'm very happy with this recommendation and to propose that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. I normally try to be optimistic on these things, but I'm afraid the average time for a called-in decision by the Secretary of State is 65 weeks from the start of the first meeting of the inspector. That would take us to June next year, late June. Realistically, yes, this is the right solution, and I trust the members on the PTWG and our officers, and I will support, but I think it's worth remembering that we are essentially at the bequest of whatever the Secretary of State decides to do. And we have to remember that this particular Secretary of State is not just for housing, they are also the Deputy Prime Minister, so it may find their way further and further down the in-tray. So there is that risk. I would also echo the thoughts that that I think every member received from CPRE. The lack of a local plan is damaging us, and I would be amiss if I didn't state outright, because I've stated it at virtually every planning committee meeting over the last 6 months, it is hurting us. It is meaning that policies that have been drawn up by parishes and communities for neighbourhood plans cannot be applied. It has reached the stage where it has, the decision at Ham Farm, for example, may have to be subject to a judicial review, because it has set precedent now that neighbourhood plans are meaningless if your district or borough council doesn't have a local plan. That completely wrecks the current NPPF. So we are in a position where, whether we like it or not, we are front line, on trying to protect plan-led planning. And at the moment, we're not doing a good enough job.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you. I'm not going to really comment on the actual main document because I've about the third time I've seen it now, and I think we got there in the end, and hopefully everyone will support this. I do just want to check though, because on the minutes it's got the PTPWG resolved that an advisory visit from Planning Inspectorate be brought forward, which I completely agree with. But I just want to check, because the PTPWG can't make decisions, should that not be that PTPWG make the recommendation to this committee that we agree that takes place?
Thank you, Chair. So we had a bit of a conversation with Democratic Services about this. It's within Office's gift to arrange these kind of visits. We wanted to steer that members felt that was right, but we didn't need a decision. So it was felt that the two of the recommendations to PTP could be resolved, and one was an onward recommendation. So that was the way we thrashed it through in the very few minutes after the minutes that we had. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, you want to come back?
Thank you, and thanks for that explanation, which I'm happy with. Hopefully everyone else is, but I just wanted to make it clear, just that we can't make that decision, but that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bonney, please.
Cheers, thank you. Yeah, I hear what the other members say, and I absolutely agree with what CP have said, their sentiment in their letter, which was sent, I think, to everyone on the committee. Just a word of warning. We had one day timed into the Heister Park inquiry for viability, which was as a result of my group wanting to discuss viability and housing. And we're now on basically, I think we're 10 days into that. And quite a lot of interesting stuff has come out of that. It's been very revealing. But what that says to me is we've already now needing 2.5 weeks in October. I think there is a serious danger that it will prolong longer, given the length of time it's taken just to get through that subject. And all the planning evidence is now being moved into October. So I don't think it will come as a surprise when we get to October that we might be dipping into November. Now, obviously, we've got agreements for how we deal with that to be discussed, and agreements that have been already, decisions that have been made. But there is a health warning that comes with this and these steps, is that we may have to look at and moderate what we agree and what we recommend here tonight, but also about things like the neighbourhood plans. It's down to a lack of 5-year supply, and you know that's really ramped up where we've got large landowners who can sit on allocations and pretty much wreck our 5-year land supply, and one of those is Homes England and Queenborough and Rushenden. You know, we're at the mercy of large landowners who, for whatever reason, feel that it's within their gift to wreck our supply. And we can't do anything about that. So we might beat ourselves up, but the reality is this is about market forces and what's going on out there. But at the end of the day, we have to move forward. We can't sit there intransigent, but actually I'm wondering whether we do need to go down the full local plan route. And as the other councillor mentioned, this could take months for the government to make a decision. It is clear from the inquiry, this is no slam dunk. This is no easy, and what has come out of it, well, she's going to have an extremely lengthy report to write, shall we say that, and that's going to take a considerable amount of time. So I will be agreeing with the proposals tonight, but I do think we need to have in mind that we're going to have to moderate things as we go along.
Thank you. Again, duly noted. So could I have a proposal then, members, for the recommendation? Councillor Gibson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Carnell. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed, members. That concludes this evening's business. Wish you all a safe and dry trip home.